by now you've figured out that my videos are pretty minimal on production quality, on aesthetics, on anything that you're used to seeing on YouTube. And that's not I don't think that's my job, to compete with the entertainment value on YouTube. The only purpose of my videos is to provide a video supplement to the lecture. And that's what we have. So, 2 large chapters, addiction and drug abuse, and alcohol and tobacco. As I burn away the time on the first one, don't worry, because there isn't that much extra to say about alcohol and tobacco that you probably haven't heard already. You know, going up through high school, other public service announcements as you are going about your daily lives, lots of targeted health care promotions, warning all of you young folk not to drink and drive, to be careful, to go with a friend you trust, and all that stuff. So I'm not going to say much that's new. It's just a reminder, and to make it official for this class. Okay, so here's addiction. You know, you hear, I'm sure all of you have an idea of what addiction is, but can you actually put it in words, like a formal definition? And here it is. Okay, but now, did you know that there's 2 kinds of addictions? Everybody knows of the substance addiction to alcohol, to substance, something to put in your body. But you know, there are things that you do with your body that you can also get addicted to. And the common one is gambling. So if you've ever seen those commercials about a casino or the lottery, then what does it always end with? The last half a second, somebody talking really fast will say something along what effect? Anybody noticed? After the lottery advertising, there's like 1 second of qualifier, a different announcer. If you have a gambling addiction, please call this number or something like that. Please gamble responsibly or something like that. So gambling is a process, and it is a process addiction. Okay, people like to joke about a shopping addiction, but it really is a thing. So you probably do not have a shopping addiction at home, listening at home, but there are people out there who have ruined their lives because they can't stop shopping. That's pretty much where it becomes an addiction, when life gets ruined. Either your life is ruined, or you're on the way there. You're not meeting your responsibilities to work, to school, to your loved ones, and because you are so caught up in whatever this thing is you're addicted to. Okay. Eating addiction is absolutely a thing. Again, you probably don't have an addiction to eating, even though you like to joke about it. I like to joke about it all the time. But when you are ruining your life because of the things you eat and how much you eat, then it becomes an addiction. And you've heard of sex addiction. Sex addiction is a common excuse. And so people who claim sex addiction, many of them don't actually have it, but there are people who really do have it, and they cannot stop themselves. Okay. A little bit about the word neurotransmitter, because whenever you look into healthcare research and articles about addiction, then somebody's going to mention the word neurotransmitter. So for those of you who didn't know, what is it about the substance, at least, that makes us addicted? After all, many of these substances that people are addicted to wasn't actually created by a human being or an animal. These are molecules created by a plant. For some reason, we put it in our bodies and it seems to work. How did that plant know that this molecule will have such a profound effect on a human body? Well, of course the plant didn't know, the plant didn't care. Actually, the plant can't think. What's happening is, throughout human history, we've been throwing things into the fire. It's like, hey, what is this? I don't know, let's throw it into the fire, see what happens. Or we come up with a branch or a stick and say, this will burn nicely, throw it in the fire. But then over time, the smarter people will notice, every time we put this bush in the fire, we feel funny. And so it's not a matter of what are the chances that one plant makes a chemical that happens to trigger one of our receptors. What are the chances of that? Well, the chances are astronomically small. But if you take every plant that's ever existed and thrown one of its branches in the fire, then if a molecule out there can do that, somebody out there is going to find it. And then they do it again, and then finally they start telling their friends and say, hey, you wanna do something funny? Take this branch and throw it in your fire. It's going to be hilarious. And they do it, and they come back and say, you're right. Oh my God, we were feeling, we were feeling awesome, or we had such a great party, or something like that. So and then the word continues, passed down generation after generation, and then eventually they figure out the principles of chemistry, and they isolate the molecule, the chemical, and now we have drugs. So somewhere, what this means is the fact that the receptor on our cells exists means we make this molecule ourselves, but in trace amounts, tiny amounts, for its own practical needs. And then one day we found a chemical from a plant that happens to fit that receptor like a lock and key. But what happens with addiction is, instead of giving ourselves trace amounts of this chemical the way our body does, we isolate it, we concentrate it, we distill it into such heavy concentrations that we overwhelm our body's receptors. So instead of feeling the most minimal effects of our own body's source of this chemical, instead our receptors are overwhelmed to the point where we actually feel we focus on the experience, and that's our drug effects, like that. Okay. One famous neurotransmitter is dopamine, and the reason why dopamine is mentioned a lot is because it's the molecule or the neurotransmitter of reward. So when we do something that we like, or the end effect is positive or desirable, then our body secretes dopamine, or our brain secretes dopamine, as a way to reinforce that behavior and to tell us to do it again. Okay? And just like any other drug out there, dopamine acts like a drug because it fits into our receptor for dopamine, and our brain, the reward center of our brain is triggered to make us feel pleasure or a sense of satisfaction or achievement, and it makes us want to do it again. There are many other receptors and many other chemicals in the body. For example, our hormones are a very well-known trigger and receptor and stimulus system here. You know about adrenaline because that's from the fight or flight, the stress reaction. Sex hormones is how our bodies turn from babies into adults. And opiate analogs. Okay. We know about the opiate category. Anybody know of an example of an opiate? Like a street drug that's an example of an opiate? You've heard of it, but maybe you didn't know the name of the category. It's a pain reliever, powerful pain reliever. Morphine? Okay, yes. So opiates is from the granddaddy of them all, which is opium, famous during the British Empire and what Britain did to the Empire of China. And I just watched a YouTube video last night from Mr. Terry, if anybody is familiar with that channel. So he came upon this video claiming that the opium trade was 1/5 of the entire British Empire's economy. That was how dependent Britain was on selling opium to its colonies, making opium addicts everywhere. Anyway, that's the great granddaddy of them all. The daddy of them all is morphine, used heavily in World War II to relieve pain in wounded soldiers. And then the current modern street versions of morphine, illegal or illegal, anybody can think of any? You've heard of them. You definitely have heard of them. You just didn't know what category it was in. What?
Can I try one weed?
Go ahead. Weed? No, that's marijuana. That's cannabis. That's something else. Go ahead.
Is it fentanyl?
Fentanyl is an opiate, yes. So they all of this in the opiate category do two things. First of all, they relieve pain like you wouldn't believe. What does it do for people not in pain? Causes euphoria. You feel like everything is right in the world. You feel like the extreme levels of happiness and contentment. But what it also does is, well, I guess it does a couple of bad things. One of them is it turns you into a massive addict. Because after experiencing such wonder and contentment and satisfaction in everything, and then it wears off and you realize you're still in this crappy place you were when you started. Life sucks. Everybody hates you. You're poor. All of these things that you're trying to escape from, and now comes rushing back. So it's a driver towards addiction because you want to go back into that happy place again. That's the long-term effect. The short-term effect is that it makes you stop breathing. Opiate overdoses make people stop breathing, and that's what kills people in the short term from an overdose. Insulin is a hormone, and we need it because insulin is what makes us move sugar from blood vessels into our cells so that we can use the sugar to turn into energy. So these are hormones. There are many, many others that we don't have time to work into. Okay. Knowing which hormones do what has allowed medical science to invent synthetic versions of every one of these so that if the body is not making enough, like that's the disease, the body is not making enough of this hormone, then modern medicine can synthesize a artificial version and then inject it into the body and then get that effect too. What happens now if you keep using that overdose? Like, whatever this drug is, anything of the above or more, any other chemical effect in the body happens as a result of a trigger and receptor. What happens if you keep using it again and again and again? Well, in the normal way it's supposed to work is that the more we trigger a receptor, the more we have an effect, the more the body has that effect on itself. At some point, the reason why the receptor exists, the reason why the body made it in the first place, is achieved, but then it doesn't need any more. But if this molecule keeps coming along, and now the body notices that too much of it is happening, what the body tends to do is starts to turn off the receptors. It's called receptor downregulation, and it's the idea that, well, since the body got what it wanted and it doesn't need any more of it, it's going to take some of those receptors and start deactivating it. What happens then? If you want to have that same effect, though, you want to still feel that what you get when you use too much, then you have to use more. And that's tolerance. Tolerance is that effect of name it, any drug, any medication. After you take it for a while, like many days, many weeks, eventually you'll notice that you need a larger and larger dose to have the same effect. If all of you can remember the first time you had a beer and how it gave you such a buzz, but depending on how much of a party animal you've been since that day, now you probably need more than just a beer. You probably need the stronger stuff to give you the same buzz. What you've done is built a tolerance to alcohol. And same thing has happened to those of you who do drugs, illegal drugs. I'm not saying you are, but if you are, you've seen it for yourself. So you've built up tolerance, which is you need a larger and larger dose to have the same effect. As your body keeps saying, enough, that's enough, I don't need any more. You keep sending me all the concentrations of this molecule are so high. You know what? I'm going to start shutting off receptors. Same thing happens to me in pollen season, hay fever season. I use one class of antihistamine, and then after and it works great, and I'm able to function in society with pollen, with my allergic reaction. But then after a few days, I notice that it's not working so much anymore. Before I start using more and more to almost to the point of overdosing on that category, I just switch categories. I know which categories of antihistamines go to which one, which classes, so I switch classes. And then sure enough, the other class I did not build a tolerance to yet, and so I rely on that for a while. Now, I've noticed that pollen season has been going longer and longer each year, so to the point where now it's up to like 3 or 4 weeks long. So I'll have to, hopefully I won't run out of categories eventually. But then what happens? After pollen season is over, 10 months go by, and I seem to have cleared my body of the tolerance, and I'm able to start over from zero again. Okay. Now, so you say, all right, I'll just take more. That's all. If one beer doesn't do it for me anymore, then I'll drink 2 beers, and then I'll drink a 6-pack, and then I'll drink a bottle of vodka, or half a bottle of vodka, and then I'll drink 3/4 of a bottle. I'll just take more and more to get the same buzz, and all done. Here's a problem now. Eventually, your body will get so used to that concentration of chemical in your body, that it starts to become dependent on it. Dependent meaning that if you stop using it, then you start to have withdrawal. Withdrawal are physiologic changes, things that you feel happening to you if you don't take that drug anymore. You try to quit. You say, that damn it, it's ruining my life. I stop taking it now. And then a couple of hours later, your body's used to like a new dose and it's not getting it, and you start suffering from it. So the withdrawal effects are different for every drug, but some of the more common ones are like nervousness, agitation. A famous withdrawal effect from alcoholism, like a severe alcoholic who quits alcohol completely immediately, they start to have hallucinations and eventually seizure. Their body goes into seizure. So, and that's a life threat. So guess what we do when we bring we bring an alcoholic suffering from withdrawal, showing the signs of severe withdrawal, and bring him into the emergency room. Guess what the doctor does? He gives him a shot of alcohol. He puts it, I guess he goes back to the supply cabinet and gets the good stuff, puts it in a cup and say, here, bottoms up. And the patient is like, Doc, what the hell are you doing to me? I'm trying to change my life around. I'm trying to get rid of this devil, this demon on my back, and here you are telling me to drink anyway? The idea is, well, look, we're trying to keep you alive, and we'll slowly taper you off the alcohol dependence over time. That's how we're supposed to do it. Okay. Biosocial, psychosocial. What this is saying is that when you are addicted, it's not just the chemical you're causing you to get addicted. There is a psychological aspect of addiction, and there's a social aspect of addiction. And as soon as I said that, for those who didn't realize it, it must make a lot of sense, right? It's the friends you hang around with. It's society's expectation of you. Let's go back to alcohol. Have you tried to have friends, but then how many of you had trouble keeping friends if you refused to drink? Or maybe that never became an issue. How many of you know of somebody who you kind of enjoyed their company, but they refused to drink with you, so one by one, your friend group eventually got rid of that guy? Like stopped inviting them to parties, stopped being, including them in activities because they're just such a party pooper. You bring them along with you to the bar and they refuse to drink, like that. So our society punishes people who try not to drink alcohol, and that's society in general. But now for those who went off to sleepaway college, most of you commute to this Queensborough college, but for those who go to university and have to like live in a dormitory, then that's like non-drinking is not an option. You almost have to join like a Christian club to find social activities that didn't have alcohol. So to not want to drink is actually difficult, is a difficult strategy here in American society. Depending on your social groups, trying not to do illegal drugs could be a non-starter. Not only do that group you're trying to get into, not only do they not think well of you if you don't get stoned with them or don't get high with them, but they'll start to actually distrust you. Like, will you rat them out? Will you narc them? Be a narc and like tell the police about them, so they'll actually even start avoiding you. And now if that's the only social group within your local neighborhood, and then you actually feel like ostracized, singled out, that concrete jungle idea where if you try to live in isolation you become vulnerable, so the best way to survive is to get friends. Can we close the door? The dance part of HPED is starting to make itself known. Okay, so that's a social model too. So it's hard. It's hard to avoid some of the common causes of addiction in society today. So what about your family? What if they're big into gambling? Everybody's into gambling. Your extended family, your local friends, they're all big on gambling, sports, or whatever, and so you grow up thinking that's absolutely normal. That is what you're supposed to do on a Saturday night. But then some people then combine that with a psychological risk factor for addiction. Some people are more prone to addiction than others. And then the biology is the physical. Wait a minute, that sounds familiar. The physical, the mental, the social. So these are all aspects of health, going all the way back to the first lecture, the first week. This also means that our attempts at the war on drugs is missing some important aspects of reality. The war on drugs is famous for targeting the supplier, the people providing the drugs, but we don't seem to be doing much on reducing the demand. As long as the demand exists, the supplier will appear to provide the drug. So even if we got all countries of the world in line and we sent out SEAL Team 6 and other special ops forces and destroyed and killed, arrested and eliminated all drug producers and all drug lords today, the demand for drugs from the average American, all average Americans contributing $5, $10 to satisfy their demand for the drug, and then combine it with everybody who's addicted, eventually the money will become irresistible and somebody's going to step up and become the next drug lord, the next drug provider. So treating only the supply side is not going to do anything. The drugs will still be a problem. So how do we treat the demand side? Well, the demand side, the addicted people, it's going to be very complicated. We have to address their psychological situation. We have to address the social situation. You go to any group of Americans, any group of kids, any group of young adults, and you just say drugs, and like at least half of them will smile and giggle, because in our society, doing drugs is a sign of like popularity, is a sign that you are cool. What's the slang term for being cool now in the young generation? I mean, the word cool is from the boomer generation. Like, it means somebody who is attractive, popular, who knows what's up, all that good stuff. I'm actually asking you guys, because you all look younger than me. What's a phrase you use to mean all that for an individual now? What?
Cool, being cool.
Oh, it's still cool? It's still
I guess.
COOL, that's still the popular phrase? I was just wondering if you guys knew or if there was something different. Okay, so in order to be cool, you actually still have to be pro-drug, pro-illegal drug. which is really sad because that means then that the demand side of the war on drugs is not is harder to fix than you would think. Okay, so other things, other parts of the biopsychosocial model, there are the environmental influences going back to our culture, and also social influences too. Okay. The dependence and codependence and enablers. So first, let's start with enablers. I really need to fix this slide. Let's talk about enablers first. Enabler is anybody who makes it easier for the addicted person to continue their behavior, whether it's a substance addiction like cocaine or marijuana, or yes, marijuana is still an addiction, even if it's legal. After all, alcohol is legal, but you can have alcoholism. So either that or a process addiction like gambling or theft, kleptomania. Anyway, an enabler is somebody who makes it easier for the addicted person to continue their behavior. If you and your coworker are supposed to be stationed at like a reception desk or a customer service counter, and then it's your friend's turn to be at the counter and it's your break time, but then your friend gives you that knowing look and like, bro, can you cover me? I gotta take care of business or something like that. And you know what's up. You know why they're asking. But in order to keep them as your friend, in order to keep them as your friend or not to rock the boat or not to make an enemy, you say, sure, bro, I got you. And then you take the customer service desk, even though you're supposed to be on break. And then that other guy runs off and goes to the bathroom or behind the store or whatever to do whatever they got to do. So your supervisor comes by and says, where is he? It's not your turn, it's his turn. And you say, oh, he had to go to the bathroom, or he got an emergency call from his mom, so I'm covering for him. There, you are an enabler. You have your reasons, and you are not addicted, but you have your reasons to protect that addicted person. Now you may think, I'm not doing nothing, I'm not doing no harm, it's just he's doing his thing, and I'm no snitch and like that. But the thing is that you think you're doing good in your own logic, you think you're doing good, but any little bit of good you may be accomplishing is short term. By allowing them to continue their addiction, they are on that long, slow fall to ruining their lives. That's enabling. Now, codependent is an enabler, but this person now needs the relationship. You, as an enabler, don't need the relationship. If that guy you were covering for eventually gets found out and fired, it doesn't matter to you. You still got your job. You weren't depending on that other guy for nothing. You couldn't care less if he lived or died. You just didn't want to rock the boat. That's all. So you're just an enabler. You don't care about the other person. If you do care about that other person, and for some reason you have a need to keep this relationship going, whatever that is, then you are codependent. I didn't write an example. Okay, class, what's an example of a codependency? Can anybody think of a codependent example? Why would somebody stay in this relationship? Yes? A parent, why does the parent need to maintain their child's addiction? Why did you bring that up? So a parent, because some parents will put up with it just to maintain their relationship, so their children's approval or love or affection. Okay, so the parent is dependent on the affection or maintaining the ties, maintaining social connections to their children. So they help their children get the drug or hide the addiction from employers. Like that. Okay, all right, that's good. What's another one?
Or if it's
So that's a more likely or a more easy to follow logic. The child is codependent on the parent. The parent is addicted, but the child who needs a parent, and that's the only one they got, they can't get another one, so they assist the parent in maintaining the addiction. Good, good. So along the family line, what's another example of a family connection that's actually the most common kind of codependency? We have parent and child, okay.
Grandma.
What?
Grandma.
Oh, you're extending it to grandparents. Okay, so we have the line of inheritance, okay.
Actually, I see that one more.
What? The grandparent supports
Yeah.
the
Give them
addiction?
money to, like,
Giving them money for addiction?
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
I mean, I don't know.
Oh. So let's go, that was vertical on the family tree. Let's go lateral. Why would a spouse be codependent? Why would they have a interest in maintaining this relationship?
Maybe they don't have enough money.
Financial, yeah. So they're stuck in this marriage because they can't afford to leave it. So yes, their spouse is addicted, and yes, the addiction is draining the money away, but it's still something compared to like nothing. Now, there's a difference between factually, objectively thinking there's no other way to survive compared to thinking there's no other way to survive. Because when most of the time when you hear about these stories, there'll be like internet comments or like, why don't they just leave? Don't they know that there are support services for like battered wives? There are support services for the homeless. Or if they know, if the story was specific on like everybody's attributes and personalities, somebody will say, isn't it obvious they could have left and gotten a job for themselves and lived a decent life on their own? Why doesn't they just leave? Well, in that person's own view of the world, they feel trapped. They don't realize they can leave. They don't understand how there are services out there to help them leave. Anyway, the codependent means that they are stuck in this relationship for whatever reason, and so they assist the addiction. Okay. Some more process addictions here. So process addiction is activity and behavior, right? Technology addiction. So I think since you are all of the internet generation now, you don't know of a reality where the internet was not a thing, which is really mind-blowing. So anyway, you understand that it's not the machine itself that is the source of the addiction, right? It's what the machine allows you access to, which is friendship, romance even maybe, at the very least entertainment, something to distract you from the harsh reality that you see around you. So you find escapism inside the screen, the YouTube videos, the computer games. So this is all technology addiction. Work addiction. Can you believe that some people are addicted to work? And I don't mean in a good way, like some people in their employment interview says, I'm addicted to my work. Okay, first of all, they're full of crap. They're just saying it to get the job. But even if they were being honest, it's not the addiction level. They just enjoy their work. But there are some people for whom they are so obsessed about being at work that they are interfering with their other responsibilities, which means to their family, to their own health. And that's really where the addiction is. Now, in the past, I said about mental health disorder, it becomes a disorder when it interferes or prevents meeting your obligations. You cannot, a mental health disorder is a disorder when you cannot hold on a job, you cannot get good grades that you would have had if you didn't have that mental health disease. You cannot maintain your relationships at home, because it's the disorder. So that's where the addiction is. What you are finally addicted when you start to sacrifice these other things in your life. There are people who go to the gym to the point where they sacrifice well-being at work. They sacrifice their career, sacrifice their grades, sacrifice their family, even sacrifice their health. So they're so obsessed with the way they look or how many gains they get that they're actually tearing themselves up chemically in the blood labs, taking supplements that are actually harming them in the long run. Okay, and of course, you don't just have to have one of these. You can have more than one, two or more, and that's multiple. Drugs, I think you know this, right? There are drugs you can only get with a prescription. All other drugs are OTC, over-the-counter. Recreational drugs are drugs you take despite or without a doctor's recommendation. So you're doing this for entertainment purposes, not to treat a medical situation. Did you know that the herbs you take are drugs too? By definition, a drug is anything that you ingest or take into your body in order to have some kind of effect. You wouldn't be taking the herbs or herbs. So British call them herbs, Americans call them herbs. And so you wouldn't be taking them unless you wanted some effect on your body, right? So thereby, when you take an herb, you're taking a drug. Well, all drugs, all medical interventions have a side effect. And so just because you were able to buy it without a prescription doesn't mean it's perfectly safe. One of the most common side effects of these herbal supplements is it interferes with your liver's breakdown of other drugs. That's like 2 levels of complexity. When your doctor prescribes a medication to you, they know your liver is gradually breaking it down. It's called a half-life. You don't need to know what half-life means. But anyway, your doctor knows that after you take a pill, it will last a certain amount of time in your body, and then you have to take another pill. So that's why the doctor says take 1 a day, 2 a day, 1 at lunch, 1 at night, or something like that. That's why you get those directions. But that's assuming a normal, healthy liver whose job it is to break it down. If you take an herbal preparation, many of these herbs, it slow down the liver's job, liver function. They do it by using up the liver. The liver is busy dealing with the herb, so less of it is available to deal with the other drugs in your body. So the drugs that you're taking from the doctor are lasting longer in your body than the doctor thought that it would. So when it's time to take the next pill, and you take it, but too much of the previous pill is still in your body, you end up overdosing on the prescription medication. This is why you should tell your doctor everything you're taking. You should mention everything, all the herbs, all the supplements, all the vitamins, everything you're putting in your body, you should mention to your doctor so that your doctor can adjust your dose of your prescription medication with that taken into account. Illicit or legal means you can't buy it without getting in trouble. If you get caught buying it, you're in trouble. Okay. Commercial preparations. This hit the news a couple of years ago because there was a pharmaceutical company taking multiple drugs that are already FDA approved and mixing them together into a new pill that all that it did was it combined 2 or more pills that are already existing on the market. So they thought patient was going to buy them separately anyway. If we can combine them together, maybe by volume we can save on cost, and then we can sell it for cheaper than the 2 of them combined. So the customer's happy, we're happy because we got a profit, everybody's happy. Well, the problem is that sometimes these inputs, these ingredients have a cross effect that nobody thought ahead of, and so they start to have problems. Also, anytime you mess with an ingredient, you introduce chance of failure. Your manufacturing process is never 100% perfect because we live in reality, not fantasy land. So whenever you run something through a production process, there is a small chance of failure. When you're dealing with drugs, that means a chance of causing harm to the patient because of a manufacturing defect. And that's what a couple of these companies got in trouble for. Oh, scroll time. Again, scroll time. That's what a couple of these companies got in trouble for. Their product had manufacturing defects that ended up hurting the patient. Speaking of more than one drug, anytime you take two drugs, then the two drugs will work together. You just got an example of it, a prescription drug and a herbal medication, or some of the herbal medications that slow down the liver's function. So that's a drug-drug interaction. One drug is affecting the other drug. So with two drugs, that's one interaction. What if you had three drugs? Well, that's three interactions, right? If you plot it out. Each drug is affecting the other two, and there's three of them. So that's three interactions. Now, what about four drugs? That's easy to imagine. If you're not taking 4 prescription drugs, then you will when you get older. So then if you're not taking, then ask your parents or ask your grandparents, how many drugs are they taking? If somebody's saying 4, then let's go. Here are your 4 pills, and each one has an arrow pointing to the other. So now let's count up the arrows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we went 2 makes 1, 3 makes 3, 4 makes 6. So instead of going 2, 3, 4 2, 3, 4 results in interactions going from 1 to 3 to 6. The interactions are expanding exponentially. So what about your grandparents who are taking 10 drugs, 12 drugs? Then the drug-drug interaction quickly becomes so complicated no single human being can keep track of them all. Fortunately, nowadays we have a computer. We run it through the computer. The pharmacist runs it through the computer. So it flags alerts, which is nice. But 20 years ago, we didn't have that kind of a thing. And drug-drug interactions was a real problem in society. Especially if somebody's having multiple medical conditions and they will go to one doctor for one specialist for one condition, and they go to another specialist for another condition, and the two doctors don't talk to each other, or they don't even know about each other. So each one prescribes their own set of drugs for their specialty, not realizing that there may be interactions across the specialties. But the patient kind of forgot to mention it to each doctor. So that used to happen a lot. Okay, some medical terms here, some pharmacy terms here. Synergy is when two drugs work together and become more powerful in combination than their individual differences. If you ever take a pain reliever, anybody notice any of the warnings in the back of a pain reliever? Antihistamine, Benadryl, or pain reliever. What does it say in the back? Yeah? You can get nausea and headache. Okay. Any other serious warnings? Oh, we're talking about two drugs together. So did you ever notice any mention of any cautions or warnings about taking this pain reliever or antihistamine with something else? Or did you just pop him like candy when there was pollen season? Anybody actually read the warnings in the back of the drug vial? Because maybe you should know the dangers of the drug you're taking. Is it safe to operate a heavy vehicle after you take Benadryl? No. Why? It makes you sleepy. What else makes you sleepy? Well, sleeping pills, I guess. What? What else makes it dangerous to operate a heavy vehicle like a car? NyQuil? Yes, that's a sleeping pill. So combining Benadryl and NyQuil is a bad idea. They both make you sleepy on their own. And if you take both of them at the same time, it could actually make you too sleepy. Too sleepy as in like put you in a coma. What's another drug that's famous for interfering with proper operation of a motor vehicle? Somebody else who hasn't spoken yet. It's famous. In fact, there are like public service announcements all the time. What's a famous drug that interferes with you operating a motor vehicle safely? You talked already. I want somebody else. All the way in the back, trying to avoid my eye contact in the corner. What's a drug, famous drug, almost everybody takes that interferes with driving? Weed? That's true. That's true. So the answer they said was weed, and weed slows down your reaction time. So it is dangerous to drive when you're high on marijuana. But now the person next to you, what's another drug that more people take than weed that interferes with driving? It's very popular. It's like the most popular drug in the United States. You've probably taken it yourself. I don't want to make a personality judgment on you, but statistically, you've probably tasted it yourself. The answer is alcohol. Wait, is alcohol a drug? Yeah, it's a drug. You take it expecting your body it to have an effect on your body, therefore it makes it a drug. Just because you can buy it without a prescription doesn't mean it's not a drug. Just because everybody takes it, or almost everybody takes it, doesn't mean it's not a drug. Popularity doesn't change its category. It is still a drug. It is, in fact, the most popular drug in the world, alcohol. Yes, it's used as a pain reliever and a disinfectant. And if you take Benadryl and alcohol, and they both interfere with reaction time, and if you take Benadryl and alcohol and you get behind the wheel, you're going to kill somebody, if not yourself, because you're going to fall asleep. So that's why in the back of the label, where it says warnings, it says do not take with alcohol. But it also says do not take with any other pain reliever at this also, because the synergism between Benadryl, diphenhydramine is the generic name, Benadryl is the brand name, and these other things that also are depressants is very powerful. That's synergism. I think the big takeaway from this is you guys need to be reading the warnings. Just because it's for sale doesn't mean it's safe. In fact, the only reason why the Food and Drug Administration allows it to be sold is that they're assuming that the user is smart enough to read the directions and follow the directions. You cannot just do whatever you want and assume they're going to take care of you or they're going to protect you. And agonist is another way of synergism, but it's kind of one-sided. Agonist, I know it sounds like agony. It's the same root word, but used in a different way. Agonist means one drug makes the other drug stronger. With synergism, they both help each other. With agonism, one causes the other to be stronger. But now that you know that, antagonism is the opposite. What does an antonym mean? The word antonym. You all passed the SATs, right? Antivirus.
Oh.
So an antonym is a word that is antagonism, focus on the anti part, like antivirus. So antagonism is one drug, prevents the effect of the other, and so does inhibition. Antagonism reduces the effect of the other. Inhibition completely blocks it. And so that's when we talk about like antidotes. Antidote, so when you get a poison, which is a drug, and then you take the antidote, means you're taking something that prevents the poison from working. So that's antagonism and inhibition. Intolerance is when the effect of the drug, the side effect of the drug, is so unbearable that it does not justify allowing the patient to take it. And the most common intolerance side effect is allergic reaction. Allergic reaction is when your body, the way your immune system is set up, just happens to attack that drug, or it assumes that drug is like an invasion. The chemical on that drug is taken as an invading soldier, trooper, and your body's self-defense mechanisms go into red alert, and that is your allergic reaction. And you mostly know about allergic reaction because it causes a rash on your skin, like pollen, makes you sniffle and sneeze, like a pollen allergy. And those are just cosmetic, inconvenient, uncomfortable, okay. But there is one kind of allergic reaction where your throat starts to swell, and it makes it harder and harder to breathe, and to the point where your throat's airway gets so narrow that you literally cannot breathe enough to survive, and then you will suffocate and die. And that is a severe allergic reaction called anaphylaxis. Now, I'm not saying all drugs cause it, it's just saying some people will react to a drug with an allergic reaction, and before they have another one that turns into anaphylaxis, then the doctor needs to know. Now, there's no way to predict who's going to get an allergic reaction or not, especially if they've never had that drug before, which is why whenever a doctor gives you a new drug, then they're careful about that. And how many of you got the COVID vaccine? Not everybody? I mean, at all in your life, even once in your life. And then after you got the vaccine, what did you have to do before they let you leave? Sit down for how long? 15 minutes, and that's exactly why. They wanted to see if you were going to have an allergic reaction. Intolerance then is the effect of the drug on the patient becomes so uncomfortable, so undesirable, that no matter how good it is for you, it's just not worth it, and then that's intolerance. There is a version of this where the intolerant reaction is actually the intended reaction. Disulfiram, you don't have to know this, but it's a cool piece of trivia, is that in order to fight alcoholism, there's the addiction to alcohol, and they did try this where, how about we make it so that drinking alcohol becomes intolerable? How do we do that? Well, there is this chemical that if it's put in the body, it will combine with alcohol, it'll create a new molecule that causes violent vomiting, extreme nausea, violent vomiting. The idea is, well, if you ever vomit for alcohol, then you'll never want it again. Your body will remember that experience, and it will completely cure you of your desire to drink alcohol. So that's the disulfiram drug. Well, it didn't really catch on because the problem with vomiting, the problem is that vomiting has its own side effects. It dissolves the teeth and gums, and some people accidentally inhale the vomit as it's coming up, and that is like a disaster, absolute emergency room disaster. So it's usually not used. The doctors try to use another method first, like behavior therapy, Alcoholics Anonymous, this cognitive behavior therapy, before they resort to something this extreme. Cross tolerance is when you built up tolerance to one drug, your tolerance actually is applicable to all the other drugs in that same category. Like I said with the with my antihistamine example. The antihistamines that are on sale in the drug aisle are from, some of them are the same, are the different drugs but in the same category. So I know that if I've built up tolerance to one, I will probably have a cross tolerance to the other. So I avoid that category completely after I build tolerance. I know to look up which categories they are and go to the antihistamine of the other category. Okay, misuse versus abuse. You've heard these two words in public often, I bet. There is a subtle difference. Misuse is using a drug for other than its intended purpose. So as college students, I'm sure you've heard all about Adderall or other drugs for attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So people who are suffering from ADHD, of course they should have Adderall. And ADHD is a thing. It is a real medical condition. And people who do suffer from it should get drugs for ADHD. The problem is that there is a urban legend that it will take normal people and help them study better. It will reduce procrastination. It's impossible to prove because it is done in the black market. Nobody has done research experimental research on it, so it's impossible to prove. However, the reputation is there, just like the reputation of you have to do drugs to be cool, otherwise nobody will like you, that kind of reputation. Anyway, there is a vibrant black market, illegal market for ADHD drugs around final exam season. And then the other thing is, though everybody who says they did it and it helped them get straight A's or something like that, or helped them do well in school, the problem now is that it is anecdotal and it could be the placebo effect. So I'm running out of time. I cannot explain what anecdotal means, and I don't have time to explain what placebo effect is for like the third time. So it's all explained in the Basic Sciences Concepts video. Placebo effect, so that's the reason why it's a bad idea. You're messing with your brain, and the problem is it's your brain, you only get one of those, you don't get another one. So, and what you might be doing, even if it's not the placebo effect, what you're doing is you're damaging your long-term health of the functioning of your brain when you use anti-ADHD drugs for other than its intended purposes. The side effects of the ADHD drug is still present, but you're not getting the benefit of it since you don't have ADHD. So people who do have ADHD, it's worth the risk, but for you, it's not. That's the problem with drug misuse. Abuse is when you use more than the recommended amount of a drug. That's abuse. So how much alcohol are you supposed to be getting? Are you allowed to take? So if you Google, I'm not going to tell you, but if you Google, you get the popular number. How many drinks per day for a male? How many drinks per day for a female? So if you really need to know, Google it yourself. I'm not going to tell you. But that's just a one-size-fits-all. Again, I refer you to the bell curve and why you have to think twice before you trust that number. Bell curve is also in the Basic Sciences video. Okay, so is there a recommended level of drug for all drugs? What's the recommended level for heroin? If you're not allowed, if you shouldn't take more than the recommended amount, what is the recommended amount for heroin? And the answer is 0. What is the recommended amount for hitting your head with a hammer so that you shouldn't do too much of it? Well, 0. You shouldn't hit your head with a hammer at all. But anyway, if you take more than the suggested amount for alcohol, then you are abusing alcohol abuse. I'll just tell you that anybody with liver disease or kidney disease should have 0 alcohol. the purpose of one of the jobs of the liver, many important jobs, is to metabolize alcohol so it's safe to be excreted by the kidneys. So if the person has liver disease, then it's alcohol is toxic to the liver. If you have a healthy liver, then it's like saying you're young and healthy, so it's okay to be punched in the face. You can survive. You can handle being punched in the face a few times. But if you have like facial fractures, and then you ask me how many times a day is it safe to be punched in the face, and I'll tell you 0. So if you have a liver disease, then the safe amount of alcohol for you is 0. If you have a kidney disease, which is his job is to pee out the metabolized byproduct, then the amount is 0. Okay. OTCs are abused mainly because it's so readily available. So think what is a famous or popular OTC drug? What is a drug you can buy without a prescription? And lots of people buy it all the time. Any suggestions?
Alcohol? You said it was.
Yes. Yes. But does CVS sell alcohol? Does Rite Aid sell alcohol?
In pharmacy?
I didn't say that, but now I'm going to reduce the range to just the pharmacy. And you've answered enough. How about you? Tylenol. Okay. So Tylenol is an over-the-counter drug. You really should read the warnings before you take any drug. They all say do not take more than a certain number per day. And then they say do not take more than several days in a row. If pain persists, which is why you're taking it, then consult your doctor. That may help the pain in the first couple of days, but it doesn't address the root problem, the original cause of the pain. So the pain continues, they keep taking the NSAID, and then they build tolerance, so they need a larger and larger dose to have the same pain relieving effect. And then they start having, after like a week or two, they start to have these other symptoms that were not part of the original experience. And finally, they give up and they go to the doctor. Maybe they're just too sick now to go to work. So they finally go to the doctor, and the doctor says, you got that thing, plus your liver is now all shot because your Tylenol. You've been overdosing on Tylenol, you've been abusing Tylenol, and now your liver is all shot. Your liver functions are through the roof. So that's why they tell you don't take more than a few days in a row. And if pain persists, please call your doctor, because clearly something's up. There's something going on in you that needs to be addressed by a doctor. And this is why you should read the directions. Don't share medications, please, with your friends and family. This happens a lot on cruise ships. Anybody know why? Anybody can take a guess? Take a wild guess. Why does drug sharing happen a lot in cruise ships? Prescription drug sharing, I mean.
Because there's no pharmacy on the cruise ship?
Of course there's a pharmacy. Of course. They not only have a pharmacy, they have a full doctor, they have paramedics, they got the whole thing. Because they're going to be isolated in the Caribbean or in the middle of the ocean for a day, a week, or 2 weeks. People get seasick for sure, but then you would think that a cruise ship would be well stocked on seasick medication, because that's like their business, right? I'm saying drug sharing, people sharing their prescription drugs with their friends or people they just met. Why do you think cruise ships would see a lot of this? What do you think of when you think of cruise ships, what kind of customers do you think of? Wealthy? Okay, people who can afford cruise ships. And? Imagine a cruise ship. Older people, yeah. The older you get, the more your body falls apart. chronic health care, chronic diseases from a lifetime of bad choices, a lifetime of not exercising enough, eating too much, then higher rates of high blood pressure and uncontrolled diabetes, artery disease, smoking, so they have respiratory diseases. So these people show up on cruise ships, a lot of them carrying their drugs with them in shoe boxes or plastic bags. And then they meet other people of their same age group and they strike up a friendship. And of course, they're going to start talking about their diseases, like what their favorite diseases. And then, of course, they're going to start sharing their opinions and advice. And then finally, somebody's going to say, I take these, and oh my God, I've never felt better. Here, try some. The problem is that when you get a prescription, the doctor tailored it for you, for your medical situation, for your body situation, your blood labs. That's what works for you. If you share with somebody else, you're literally practicing medicine without a license. Illegal drugs are bad, okay? I don't have to tell you. Everybody tells you the problem is too many other people in your age group are ignoring it because for them, that's the only way to be cool. That's the problem. How do we stop making illegal drugs cool? Of them, you have uppers and downers. You've learned about the sympathetic nervous system. Which one is the sympathetic nervous system, an upper or a downer? Who have I not asked yet? Does stress increase or decrease body activity? Increase. So sympathetic nervous system is things that trigger the sympathetic nervous system are stimulants. Cocaine, amphetamine, caffeine. I think that's caffeine. Anything that, these are all uppers, and they work. How do they work, by the way? When a hunter-gatherer grabbed the primitive poppy plant, no wait, that's opiates. They grabbed a random, where does cocaine come from? The plant that they isolated cocaine from, and threw it on the fire, the campfire, and they were like getting all jittery and wide awake. How did they know? How did they know this would work? They didn't know. It was totally random. It's just that the cocaine molecule that coursed through the system just happens to be fitting into the sympathetic receptor, and that's how you get your sympathetic triggers. Like what? Like what does sympathetic nervous system do to the body? Anybody remember? Because it's on the exam.
It decreases digestion.
Okay, so you've answered decreased digestion. What else? What is it you want to happen? This is why you're taking an upper to your body. Anybody? Why do you take cocaine? Why do you drink caffeine? What do you want it to do to your body? Oh, now the hands are going up. The heart. What does it do to the heart?
The blood pressure.
Blood pressure. What does it do to blood pressure?
Exercise.
What do you think cocaine does to blood pressure? Increase, yeah. So the cocaine activates the sympathetic nervous system, which makes blood pressure increase, so that you can fight, you can run away from the tiger, so you can beat up your competitor. What's another thing you want? Why would somebody take cocaine? What does it do to them? Make them what? Happy. So more active, more alert. What else? Why else would somebody take amphetamine? Any upper? Why would somebody want to take it? No, you over there. Hand up. A boost of adrenaline, which is another way of saying sympathetic nervous system. So that's what's going on. In their own special way, they stimulate adrenaline, It's not a boost of adrenaline. This is replacing adrenaline. It's triggering the receptors that adrenaline should have been for, but these molecules come along, fit into that lock, and activate these body functions without adrenaline, because they replace the adrenaline. Okay. Depressants then are the opposite. So not the sympathetic nervous system, but what then? This is on the exam. Instead of the sympathetic nervous system, depressants trigger which nervous system?
Parasympathetic.
Correct. Parasympathetic nervous system is the opposite. Does anybody know if the sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight, the phrase, then the parasympathetic nervous system is famous for what phrase? Not fight or flight, but the opposite, which is? I'm not going to answer that. Look it up at home. When you get home, look it up. We're moving on. Depressants are drugs then that bring the body down. Don't activate the body. In fact, calm it down. The problem now is that if you overdose on depressants, then you calm down so much that you go into a coma. Or you calm down so much that you stop breathing. The problem with overdosing on stimulants is that, yes, it makes the heart beat harder and faster. So if you overdose on stimulants, then your heart beats so fast that it breaks. Cardiac arrest, it breaks. It causes a heart attack. Okay. There are other drugs like marijuana. So there have been like 3 mentions of marijuana during this lecture. They were all wrong. Here it's the correct response. Marijuana has its own effect, but it's not really a downer, but it does reduce response time, so not a good idea to be high on marijuana when you are driving. And yes, I know marijuana is now legal in New York State, but it doesn't mean you're allowed to operate a motor vehicle. It doesn't mean you're allowed to, alcohol is legal to be sold in New York State, but it doesn't mean you're allowed to drive drunk. So don't show up for your work. Don't show up for work high, and say, but it's legal, because you may not be allowed. After all, would you want your surgeon high on marijuana as they operate on you? So you don't want them to be drunk. You don't want them to be high. Okay. Opioid, I said, if you overdose on it, you stop breathing. So if you are at a party and you and your friend are at the party, and then you notice your friend is nowhere, so you search around for your friend, and then you finally find your friend either lying on the sofa or lying on the floor, and then you ask, what happened? What did he have? And then somebody says, oh, one of everything. Then here's the problem. They may have taken an opioid and they may have stopped breathing. So if you care about your friend, if you're having that kind of friendship where you actually care if they lived or died, then try to find out if they're breathing. And if they're not breathing well enough, then call 911. And if you're thinking to yourself, but I don't know how to tell if somebody's breathing enough, take a CPR course. What CPR course? Oh, well, we give it here. Queensborough Community College gives many CPR courses. They are 1 credit hour, 2 days, although there is a 1-day version. But anyway, it's here. So this lecture was made possible in part by our sponsor, Queensborough Community College. I know all of the people who teach it, and they're all very good. They all have twice the experience I do. If you are interested in taking a CPR class, but you don't have that kind of money, then all you need to do is type CPR class, and then the zip code, your zip code. What's a zip code I can type in?
11.21.
Oh, okay. I won't tell you who said that, but I just typed in a random zip code, and look at this. There are all these privately run CPR classes. They usually charge around $100, and it lasts about a day. And then out of it, you'll get a certification card that says you now know how to do CPR. And even if you don't care about the card, even if you don't care about helping strangers, it's a good skill to have in case somebody you do care about needs CPR compressions. So not only do they teach you how to give good compressions, when to call 911, but also when to do it, because that's kind of important, right? You don't want to start compressing on somebody who doesn't need it, because then you're kind of making things worse. Okay. So for opioids, fentanyl, Percocet, clonidine, OxyContin, methadone, these are all opiates. If they take it too much of it, they can stop breathing. Then this is what we give. It's called Narcan. The generic name is naloxone. Anyway, the version you find is probably looks like this. You make sure they're lying down and squirt it up their nose. Push the button here, the trigger here. They'll get a blast of this up their nose. They're not going to drown. It's okay. And there's very minor side effects, so there's almost no contraindication. Indication means a reason to give it. A contraindication, contra means the opposite, is like a reason not to give it, and there's almost no contraindication for giving Narcan. But definitely, if you find somebody who is not responding and is not breathing, the benefits far outweigh any possible side effect of it. I think it's on sale now. You can even buy it at your local drugstore now. It's generally available to the regular public. Okay, here's a list of other drugs, but it's beyond the scope of this course to know here. Benzos and barbiturates are also downers. They also are meant for like pain relievers, but they knock you out, and they make overdosing may put the person in a coma, and they can also make the user stop breathing. Hallucinogens, people take hallucinogens because it makes them think they're more creative, and it gives them like a special journey, adventure in their mind. The problem is that some people can have what's called a bad trip, which is the experience they have is a nightmare. It's not a dream, and they get like, they are psychologically abused from the experience. So things like LSD and ecstasy, like that. Inhalants are when they take something very volatile, like spray paint or gasoline, put it in a plastic bag, give it a chance to get nice vapors, and then they inhale it. So why would they do that? Well, if you use the right chemical, then it interferes with your normal working of the brain, and many people, uneducated people, think that it makes them high because they're just not thinking straight, because it's interfering with the normal operation of their brain. Never mind that it's damaging cells. It could cause long-term brain damage, but as long as it makes them forget the reality they are in, then I guess that's good enough for them. So if it can cause such long-term brain damage, why would somebody do that? Because they can't afford anything else. Gasoline, spray paint, that's available at your local store. It's cheap compared to like other illegal drugs. So some people who are down and out and who are desperate for some kind of escape from their harsh reality will turn to, or not just harsh reality, some people do this because they're just bored. Life is good, parents love them, future is bright, but they're just bored. And so they're looking for a new experience, and they try this, and then they cause irreparable brain damage. Anabolic steroids is when muscle builders use it to make more muscles, make them big, look good in the mirror. The problem is, cut to the chase here, it shrinks testicles and makes them emotionally unstable. The roid rage that you've heard about, it shrinks testicles. So that's a pretty profound thing to say. It's true. Google it yourself. But so when you know that phrase like, oh, you should use this pen, it's like a Mont Blanc but on steroids. You should buy this car because it's like a Porsche on steroids. That phrase, like on steroids, Every time I hear that phrase, my thought is always, you mean it has small testicles and is emotionally unstable? Why would I want that in my pen or in my car? No, thank you. Anyway. So, that's, and then, so here's a couple of slides on treatment. So I said cognitive behavior therapy. This is all about treating the demand. We don't seem to be having any success on the war on drugs by treating the supply. We have to treat the demand, which is the psychology and the sociology of the addicted person. Okay, so with no time left, I'm just telling you the slides on alcohol and tobacco are also very important, but I don't think I'm going to tell you anything you haven't already heard. So please read these, because these will be on exam 2, second midterm exam. Just let me sure that it's all there. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, good luck on the exam.